Hey there, I'm Dylan Goodson, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's meeting of the International Association of Woodcarvers.
All right, everybody, I want to welcome you guys to the International Association of Woodcarvers May 21st, 2022 meeting. We're excited. We're going to have Dylan Goodson with us today, and he's going to be presenting for us on relief carving, like how to create patterns and using modern technology. So he's going to be teaching an upcoming class, and I'm going to let him talk about that a little bit later. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm not Blake Lunsford. He's a lot better looking than I am. So he's going to actually have the great opportunity to get a little bit of time away with his family. I'm sure he'll come back later and watch the video and evaluate and judge what I'm doing. But anyway, and before Dylan gets started, I've got a couple announcements to make. Today is going to be the last weekly meeting until September. We will have a more of a once a month meeting schedule. So we're going to meet June, July, August, but we'll have different dates that we'll meet those, and I'll give those to you in just a second. On June 18th, which will be the next meeting that we'll have, Chris Wilson with Wilson Wildlife Sculpture is going to come and present for us on that day. So we're going to meet June 18th, July 23rd, and August 20th throughout the summer. And then in September, we'll start back with our weekly meetings. You can follow out all that information on any of our social media for the International Association of Woodcarvers. Also, if you have are subscribed to our monthly newsletter, we'll have that all in the newsletter, so you'll see when all that information is going on and happening. I want to let you guys know we've got Carving at the Rockies coming up. So that is September 24th and 25th. Blake is going to be broadcasting from there. So make sure that you stop by and see him when he is. And it gets to be around 3 o'clock on that Saturday. Go ahead and bug him like crazy so we can make sure that we have a good meeting for that day. Also, we'll be doing a Helvie knife auction. Rich was just on here a second ago, which was nice to see. But we're going to be doing that in the June meeting. So be prepared in the June meeting for that. Sign up for the Woodcarving Academy subscription. Go out to Woodcarving Academy. You can get monthly, quarterly, and yearly subscriptions. And you will be able to see what classes are coming up, because we also have some classes popping up here. Our own Dave Stetson, who's here hanging out with us today, is going to have a heads, hands, and hair class starting July 9th. Janet Cordell is going to be doing a carving a full figure female starting July 25th. So go and look at the workshop section at the Woodcarving Academy, and you'll be able to see what's coming up and be on the most current events on what workshops are going to be available. Also, remember to take a look at the latest Woodcarving Illustrated and find out, find the ad that we have in there. It's in the back of the magazine. So go and find that out and see what's going on there and support our Woodcarving Illustrated. I want to thank everybody so much. Blake said, he messages to me, he said, thanks so much for the much needed break, but he'll be back for the June meeting, he promises, so he'll be here with that. With that being said, I'm going to turn things over to Dylan. And always remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and I'll interject in chat and ask him those questions when needed. So Dylan, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, sir, and we'll get going.
All right. Well, it's great to see everybody. I'm Dylan Goodson, as stated. So today, what I thought I would talk with you all about is how I got started carving, my carving journey. I'm going to show you some photographs of carvings that I've done over the years, ones that were kind of landmark type carvings. And so I'm going to talk about that stuff. And then I'm going to talk about pattern making. Because when we start out as woodcarvers, the first thing we need to do is we need to actually learn how to sharpen our tools. And along with that, we also need to learn how to draw our own patterns if you have any ambition ever for creating your own original wood carvings. And why wouldn't you? I mean, that opens up such a great world of fun projects to do. So we'll be talking about that later on. And so let's get into the talking about my journey. So Dave asked me earlier, it's like, how long have you been carving? I get that question all the time. I've been carving for about 22 years. And so that means I started carving when I was about 14, at about year 2000. And as a kid, I had kind of a natural urge to create. Like as an 8-9-year-old, I was taking, blocks of wood, hammer them together, put some nails in it. You got the little spaceship to play with, or, take a piece of firewood, split it in half, taper one end, stick a dowel in it for a mast, and you got a little ship, to play with in the creek that ran through my parents' property. So I was doing that kind of stuff as a kid. And I don't remember exactly the sequence of events, but I ended up carving this little cat. And this little cat is my very first carving. And it predates everything else. And it probably even really predates when I really started carving. This was probably before 2000. I'm honestly not sure. I didn't date it, unfortunately. But, I kind of carved out the head. We had a little number 5 by 3 millimeter palm tool out of a wood engraving set from Hobby Lobby. And with that tool, I carved out like the face on this little cat. And then it just, got stuck in my toolbox for like a year. And then like a year later, I came back and I figured out what to do with the feet. And on his back, there's a little relief carving of the cat's tail. So that there is my very first carving. And as you can see, it had pretty humble beginnings. And I don't really subscribe to the whole God-given talent thing, because this is where I started. And it took me a good, 15 years to really get to the point where I wanted to be at. Always enjoyed watching Roy Underhill and Scott Phillips woodworking shows on PBS as a kid. My dad would flip over to those programs in the commercial breaks during the football game on Saturday afternoon. So we'd catch a piece of the show here and there. And one episode, Scott Phillips did a road trip out to a woodcarving show. And they filmed a carver carving a block of wood, carving a face on the corner of a block of wood, and it's that, it's the classic way to set up a face and everything. It's the way to do it. And it's like, well, I got to go try that. So I got out my X-Acto blades, and, I had scrap of wood. I think it was actually probably from that Hobby Lobby kit or something. It was a little scrap of basswood. And he's a kind of a Picasso, but, it was a face. And I was basically hooked at that point. I think from there, I decided I needed some little soldier with my toy boats, that I was making for playing in the creek. So I made out some little matchstick size soldiers, I did like a whole little series of little heads out of just, sticks that we had laying around. I was homeschooled. Me and my siblings homeschooled. My parents live in the middle of 40 acres of woods in central Alabama. And we were encouraged and had the time to pursue what interested us. So I was encouraged to play with knives. And the fact that I was, collecting sticks and carving them up into stuff was not a problem for my parents. What I wanted to do as a teenager in wood carving was I wanted to carve realistic human figures. And I wasn't really that good at them. I didn't know anything about anatomy, didn't really know that much about carving. This is one of the more elaborate ones I made. I think all my siblings got kind of tired of receiving wood carvings for their birthday presents through my teenage years. This one I made for my older brother who was into knife. So I had to do the blacksmith for him. But yeah, I got a little frustrated with my lack of knowledge and a little lack of technique. And so, after playing around with these for, a couple of years, 3 years, something like that, I started doing some animals. And, these examples here, they didn't really go much better. But this carving, the wolf here in the middle, this is significant because this carving is the first carving that I ever entered into a competition. I got in on the last year of Woodcraft's wildlife carving competition that they did in conjunction with Woodcarving Illustrated. And, the setup was, bring your carving to the store. We'll pick out the best carving from the store, and then, we'll send them off to the national level, and, all the carvings from all the woodcraft stores will get pooled together, and we'll pick out the best one. And as you can see, this was 2003. And actually, you base it on the date. My birthday is in July. And I missed out by like 3 weeks on being able to enter into the youth category. And so I've never had the advantage, privilege, let's say distinction of being able to enter a competition in the youth category or in the novice or amateur category. So I aged out of the youth category right before that competition. And but it was okay because nobody entered against me. There was only like 2 or 3 carvings or whatever it entered. And so I was alone in I think this was the amateur category, and there was another lady that had a carving in like the professional category. And so my carving got shipped off to the national level where it didn't do anything whatsoever. But I did get a year subscription out of it for Woodcarving Illustrated magazine, which I was not aware of that magazine. I was not familiar with that at the time. And so through the magazine, I learned about the Woodcarving Illustrated forum. And there's a number of people in the woodcarving world still that remember me through the many years that I spent hanging out on the forum. So I got a little frustrated with human figures. I started doing animals. I learned a very important lesson in that you need to have reference material, and you need to have good reference material. So I started doing turtles because I found the box turtle shells laying around in the woods. I had like 7 of them. I had some great reference material for the shells. What the turtle looked like inside the shell, I was a little unclear of at first. And so turtle number 1 here is on the left. You know, it's a little weird looking turtle, but by the time I get over here to the 3rd box turtle I carved, it's getting much better. And this is one of the projects that I teach occasionally. You know, when I teach carvings, I focus on human figures and carvings because those are the things that I am, you know, most skilled at. They're the things I enjoy carving most, and they're what people know me for. But occasionally I do some animal carving projects. So yeah, I did a whole series of turtles. I think I've carved like 7 or 8 of these guys over the years. Did an article for Woodcarving Illustrated on them. Actually, that might be the 3rd one here on the right-hand side. But yeah, this one here in the middle, you know, I'm not always big into naming my carvings or anything, but this guy, I did name him Patches because there was a knot in this piece of Western cedar that I carved him out of. And you wouldn't know it, but I actually completely replaced this section of the shell because there was a knot there. So he got named. Okay, so relief carving. A lot of people know me for relief. This is my very first relief scene. This is the pattern out of Laura Irish's book, Landscapes in Relief. That got me going in relief carving. And yeah, it set me on a path for doing these landscapes. And I got to, you know, talk with Laura, you know, on the Woodcarving Illustrated forum over the years, and you know, talk about projects and stuff. So that was yeah. So that was the start of that. That was 2004 that I did that carving. Now, I'm a commission wood carver. I work on commission. You know, I haven't always had the luxury of the steady line of commission work that I am currently enjoying, but I have been doing carvings for money for a long time. And this is the very first carving I did for money. I got paid $50 for this, which just started the long string of me not charging enough for my work. I actually did this for the wife of my martial arts instructor. She gave it to one of her daughters. I ended up doing a carving for each of the daughters. They had a similar one, but they wanted one with a unicorn horn. Yeah, very, very first commission project. I about put my eye out carving this thing. The head is joined to the body. And I was whittling a peg to fit to help hold those together. And I got stuck in one hole, and it was an extra long peg, so I could pull it out. And I got stuck in so hard, I couldn't get it out of the hole in the body. And when I finally did pull it out of the hole, it hit right above my eye and about knocked myself silly and about put my eye out. So yeah, just one of the many accidents.
Dylan, real quick, Dylan, we had a question in the chat. Do you sand, like the first few ones that you were showing us, do you sand those?
I do sand my carvings. Some of these back here, yeah, I'm sure I probably did run over that with sandpaper just a little bit. And I definitely sand my carvings nowadays to clean them up, get the grime off of them, get pencil marks off, soften the edges, the corners, whatever is required. This guy here, this is the first class project I ever did. This was the project that I carved in the first seminar I took. And this was in 2005. A guy by the name of D. Gibson out of Texas. He came to Alabama. There was a wood carving show put on in Montgomery. And, here I was. I'd been carving for 5 years. It's like, well, yeah, let's take the class. I signed up. I paid, I had a table at the show. I talked earlier, I never got to enter in like the novice category. They didn't have any other novices, at the show. So I just entered my pieces in the open category with everybody else. I think I got a second place ribbon for a thing or two, so it wasn't like I came out of the gate, winning best of show or anything. Obviously a lot of wood burning on this guy. Part of that was, that was the first time I'd ever met any other wood carvers, and I found out about the local wood carving club at that time, and yeah, got to meet some people that, well, I know some of y'all here know Carol Jean Boyd. She was the one that hosted the show that first year, and then she went on and hosted it again the next year. And there was another fellow coming in and took a class, and I got to meet Carol Jean. And, so we go way back, and we've done a lot of things together, which I'll talk about that some more. Now, this carving is significant because this one, this might actually be the first one that I ever won a blue ribbon with, but is also the first carving that I ever did from a photograph. And by that, I mean, I took a photograph and I created that photograph as a wood carving. And that's what I'll talk about more in my demonstration. So yeah, that was the milestone there. This carving, after finding out about the local carving clubs, I joined the carving clubs and like right away, particularly the guys at the Tannehill Wood Carving Club in Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama. They immediately said like, oh, you got to show us these. You got to show us how you do these reliefs. And so this was the very first class project I taught. And I made him do the whole thing from scratch. I gave him a blank piece of wood and a pattern. And I think to this day, most of them probably have never finished it. But, that's a sentiment I definitely understand. Now, this carving, this is actually my parents' house. This is, I call it the homestead because, it is their homestead. And this is a like 14-inch wide by like 28-inch long, 3-inch thick piece of black walnut that my brother, the knife maker, gave me as a Christmas present one year. And he challenged me to use it in one piece, not cut it up in a bunch of smaller pieces. So this was the carving I decided to do out of it. I carved 2 inches deep. There was 28 inches, let me take that back. 18, I think it was 18 different layers of depth. So a lot of different layers of depth. And I free cut behind almost all of the tree trunks. And was a real signature piece and a real major carving. Now, I've been taking wood carving classes for, well, I haven't taken some in, probably 5 or 6 years. But up until that point, for let's say about 15 years, I was taking 1 or 2 carving seminars a year. And the most influential seminar I ever did was I went to the Giesler Moroder Woodcarving School in Austria. And I went over there for 2 weeks. It was very, you know, I mean, it was the trip of the lifetime for me. And, you know, it was just fabulous. So I took two classes while I was over there, 2 week-long classes. The first week I was over there, they had a painting and gilding class going on. And I thought, you know, when else am I ever going to have the opportunity to learn how to do, you know, old style, you know, gilding? And so it's like, I got to do this. But since it was the first week of when I was going to be over there, I bought one of their rough outs, carved it, took it with me, and that's this clown. And I did this really detailed, you know, I got in and like really, really finely carved the details of the eyes and the hand and the face. And I got over there, and the like first day and a half of the class, we spent putting traditional gesso on it. And if you don't know what gesso is, it is the white stuff, you know, artists put on the canvas before painting. Well, when you talk about traditional gesso, the thing that's most similar to that would be drywall mud. So we mudded this carving for like a day and a half. And then we had to scrape it back, smooth it up, kind of sand it down before then starting to apply the gold and the paint. And so, I mean, it was a full week of work painting this figure. And I've got this picture here because I wanted to show you that this is how we started painting the flesh tones. We painted the thing greenish gray, and then we built it up to the flesh tones, which that was kind of mind-blowing for me. Mind-blowing for them. Now, I'd been carving for 10 years at this time, and they get everyone over there at the school. They get people that have literally never touched wood before with a tool to people that have been carving for decades and decades. But they weren't expecting me, who looked like someone who was just starting out, to come in with 10 years of experience. And so I knocked this guy out in the first day. You know, I had 5 days of carving that second week I was in Austria. So I knocked him out first day. And then I went on to carve this guy nearly in his entirety in the rest of the class. And that they were surprised about. Now, I will say this. I mean, I was learning. You know, I wasn't just showing off there. I was learning the stuff the guy taught me about the face, the way they do that, the wrinkles and folds. Most of what I teach and most of how I carve human figures comes from what I learned there. And both these carvings are on the shelf behind me, if you see those when we zoom back out here to big picture me. But yeah, so that was really the trip of a lifetime for me. Now, one of the other big classes that I've done is I spent a week, and I think this was 2014. I spent a week studying with Fred Zavadill in Windsor, Ontario. Fabulous carver. Does most of his carvings as clay models first. And that's what I went to him to learn. I wanted to learn how to do clay models. And I had dabbled with some clay before, but I hadn't really, you know, I hadn't really done it seriously. and done it quite to the level that Fred does. And so this is the clay model for the magician carving. In its progress, we actually sculpted out the body first, which that's not always necessary, but it is something that's helpful to do, and then we added the clothing on top of that. So if you want to see more pictures of this guy, you can go to my website, oldoakenterprises.com. I've got a full album of photographs on the magician. I've got little stuff all the way around this guy. Check it out. If you've not seen this guy in person, then you should look at the pictures online. It's it's on my business card. It's a signature piece for me. Now the magician is actually it kind of plays into my carving journey. So after I joined the woodcarving clubs, I started teaching for them locally. I started traveling, taking classes. Then people started having me come and teach. And I was in Midland, Michigan, teaching at the learning seminar there that they used to do. I did that event for many years. It was a great event. I had the magician with me, but because, the hectic Monday morning, I didn't, and it's not a show, it's just seminars. So I just had it there to show off and share with people. And so I was too busy to unbox the magician Monday morning. So Tuesday morning, I unboxed the magician. And where I'm going with this is I actually met my wife there at the seminar in Midland. She carves for fun as a hobby. She was in the next class. She was in the class next to the class I was teaching. She did this kind of double take Tuesday morning. It was like that magician wasn't there the morning before. So we got to talking and things clicked. And 6 months later, I packed up my tools and I moved to Michigan, which is the great thing about having a kind of portable career. But the reason I got the Swedish chef here is this is the first carving that we carved together. We didn't carve it together. I carved it and she carved one. She had to carve one as a gift for a friend. And it's like, all right, well, I'll sit down here and I'll carve one with you. And so yeah, that was the first time that we carved together. And this is the first carving that we actually both worked on. So I moved up here. It was 2 days before Christmas. I moved up here it was the 22nd. Moved up here on the 22nd of December. And so Barb was needing some help finishing this up to give to her aunt for Christmas. So I got in there, knocked some wood off, kind of rounded it up a little bit more, so she could get it done in time for Christmas. And then we realized that if her aunt got the first co-carved carving, there was going to be major trouble. So we drew up this reindeer and we knocked this guy out. And I was up late Christmas Eve painting this guy so that we could give this to her mom. Because if her aunt had gotten the first co-carved carving, that wouldn't have gone good. So we carved this. Barb drew out and carved the eyes, and so those were our joint projects. And sometimes we'll work on stuff together. Now, no slideshow of milestone carvings would be complete without talking about the largest carving I ever did. And so that's this tree. Did this for a couple in Chicago. Thing's 8.5 feet tall, or nearly 9. I don't remember. Had to do it in pieces. Most mentally challenging carving I've ever done. There was a great deal of time just spent staring at this thing, racking my brain on how to fit the pieces together. And of course, is for a nursery expecting their first child. So, cute couple of birds. There's a little egg in the bird nest there. I did a drawing, then I did a clay model, and I actually carved most of it out in the yard. I made a mock-up of the corner of their room. And of course, I did it over the course of the summer, and summer ran out and the snow started. So I had to move it to my wife's aunt's garage to finish it up. And you can't talk about big carvings without this carving of this. This is actually carved out of foam. This is also the only commission project that's ever fallen through on me. The guy kind of fell off the radar. So I was out a bunch of time, but at least I wasn't out the money of the materials. There you can see I'm starting to saw out the block of foam. As high density urethane foam, glued it together with Gorilla Glue. That was back in 2010. I think I did that. Now, that's the biggest. The carving of Jesus is the biggest figure I've ever done. But this would be the biggest wooden figure I've ever done. And this comes from a different religion, which is Vietnamese Buddhism. Much more recent carving. Really happy with how it came out. And that concludes my little slideshow. And as time is slipping away, let's talk about pattern making.
Dylan, real quick, before you jump into pattern making,
please do.
What was the name of the Australian Carving Academy that you were speaking about?
It's the Giesler Marauder Woodcarving School. And I do believe that they actually own the URL of woodcarvingschool.com. But if you Google anything close to that, you will come up with it. The funny story about that is my friend Carl, my best friend, he's a member of the Ten Hill Woodcarving Club. Good friends with him ever since I joined that club in 2007, late 2006 maybe. He's the representative for the school. But it was another guy, another woodcarving instructor that actually convinced me to go, because he was looking for someone to go with him. And but I didn't have a passport or anything. And so I went later by myself. So, all right, ready for pattern making? Let's so I thought what I would talk about is the way I use modern technology to help with pattern making. If you're watching this video, I am assuming that you have a computer or an iPad or some kind of device where you can probably do some of the stuff that I'm going to show you. Nearly all of this can also be done old school with pen and paper, but there is some hardware you're going to need. And the printer that is over my shoulder here is a great example. You're going to need a printer. And if you're going to buy a printer that can do tabloid size paper, 17 by 11, which this is actually transparency film, which I'll mention that again. 17 by 11 is big. It's twice the size of a regular piece of paper. Most of your carvings actually will fit on one piece of tabloid size paper. So that's really convenient. So that I have here a drawing pad that's covered with dust. Shocking. you know, like I said, you can do drawing, you can do patterns without having to draw digitally. This is something I've only started doing the last 2 years. Before that, I would draw stuff out on paper. I would scan it using my printer scanner. Then I could manipulate it in the computer. And I held this up. I will mention this. Not exactly digital technology, but it is something that is modern. Clear transparency film. Anybody familiar with my classes knows I rely on this stuff. And you can see I've got a pattern printed out here. I can lay that on top of my piece of wood, line up the pattern, and then draw the pattern underneath. And it's not foolproof by any means, but it will help. I find it allows me to transfer a more complicated pattern without really having quite as much work. It makes it a little easier to transfer those detailed patterns. All right, so now let's minimize this. Oh, I got all kinds of stuff I got to minimize here. Where's my desktop? Here we go. All right. When you're talking about when you're talking about digital drawing, photos, everybody's heard of Photoshop. And this is Photoshop CS2, which is like 25 years old. But you can still find and download for free this version of Photoshop. And it still works. Now it's a little harder to use on a 4K resolution monitor because all the little buttons and stuff are really small. But all the functionality is still there. Now there are some places where it's definitely still, it's definitely showing its age, and I'll get to that in a minute. This is a file from carving I did several years ago. It was a project. In Photoshop or similar programs, GIMP is the free open source alternative to Photoshop. And personally, I haven't really used GIMP. I do have it. I've only used it a couple of times, and it's not Photoshop. I'm not used to using it. Anyway, in Photoshop, you can, with the right photograph, you can actually manipulate it to become a line drawing just using the program. You don't have to redraw anything. And like, there's the photograph that I utilize to make this pattern, or one of the photographs anyway. Cut and paste, crop things together. Like down here, there's a dog that I cropped in from somewhere else. So there's a lot that you can do with cobbling together different images to make something new or unique. And the big thing here is like working in layers. Oh, there's a layer. I don't know what that was about. I guess I was drawing something else. But Photoshop, for me, I've been using Photoshop for like 20 years or 15 for sure. So that's something I rely on. Now, yes, you can just take that photograph. You can trace it. Tracing, I'm a big fan of tracing. And tracing is the way I go about making patterns. The beauty of relief carving is that you only need one image. And let's open this up. Let's see what this, oh, okay. You know, you only need one image and you can just trace off of it. And if you're not drawing digitally, you know, print out your picture, tape it to a window, or use a light box or something like that. You know, tracing paper, carbon paper, you know, trace that image, you're going to have your pattern. This is actually a photo of one of my students' projects. This program is called Create. It's open source, it's free. It's a very powerful painting and drawing program. And this is actually what I draw my patterns in. Because that old version of Photoshop I have doesn't really work very well with my digital drawing pen. So, so I found this program for actually drawing. So this is where I draw my patterns. And this is actually a program I use for my online classes where I give people feedback on the carvings they're working on. I can draw on their carvings. I can tell them, like, oh, well, you know, you got this line a little bit too flat. You need to carve a little bit more off. So that's how I do my online classes. And I can draw, I can trace any kind of photo, or I can draw from scratch in this program. So this is, I would definitely look up this program. And so I do a lot of drawing. We'll leave that open. And now let's talk about working in the round. So I'm going to share my phone screen now. And there are ways that you can run Android apps on a PC or Apple apps. I just don't have that set up. So what I'm showing you here is I'm just mirroring the screen off of my phone. And we're going to go here to Pose Tool. This is a 3D drawing reference app. And what it does is it gives you this three-dimensional figure. And you can actually have like up to 4 figures in here. And there are many apps like this. I actually paid for this one. I have another one. It's called Magic Poser that I'm using. You know, it's a little different, but kind of the same thing. So what we can do here is we can manipulate this guy. And this model doesn't have any physical limitations. So you do have to understand the physical limits of the human body. But what this does is it gives us a more or less, you know, pretty anatomically correct figure that we can pose and manipulate, and then we can use that for drawing reference. And I thought I might have time today to actually like draw up a pattern for y'all, but I've talked too long and I'm not that fast a drawer anyway. But I can show y'all how I would go about this. This particular app is pretty cool because it allows you to add accessories. There's a lot of weapons, but I thought I might draw up a Santa Claus for you. And I saw earlier that they had a suitcase down in here. So that might be kind of cool to have like a Santa Claus holding a suitcase. So maybe he's late for, I don't know. Maybe he's not a Santa Claus. Who knows? But you can see how you can manipulate things. And now remember, this is still on my phone. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a screenshot of this model. I'm going to take it from the front. I can take it from the back, take it from the side, take you some reference photos. All right, so we got two. Okay, so we got two of those. And we can now stop our screen share. And let's see. That was probably not the button I wanted to hit. Let's see. Let's grab my files here. Wait for it to connect. All right, so I've got those. I took those screenshots on my phone. Now I've got them over here on my computer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop those into my drawing program. Let's see. Let me just start a new project here. There we go. Put those over there. So you can do a lot of this, and I've done a lot of this in Photoshop as well. The main reason, I don't necessarily use Photoshop for this is because, like I said before, it just doesn't work with my digital drawing pad and pen. And but there's nothing saying you could do it. Let me start a new layer. I've got my digital model here. Now would be a matter of, sketching out. Oh, let's see. We'll get that. Sketching out, let's say, yeah, Santa Claus. So let's give him a Santa Claus type hat. Guy needs some clothes, right? Maybe it hangs down on the backside over here where we're not seeing it. Gonna have to get a collar. I should have used the fat model. That program has multiple body types. So we'll just sketch out the clothing. Let's see, he's going to have boots, right? So give him some boots. In case y'all were wondering, I don't draw very well under pressure or fast. I don't do anything fast. Certainly not carving. That's why I gave up doing the speed carving contest down there at the show in Charlotte, because Dwayne Gosnell kept beating me because I just can't carve as fast as him. So I gave up on that. Oh, he's got to have a beard. And here's where the beauty of like the digital drawing comes in. I can just start a new layer and I can draw on, draw on a beard. And maybe I don't like that beard, so maybe I can erase that. Because it's on a different layer, I'm not messing with the layer of the clothing. I'm just messing with the layer that's got the beard. So that's the really nice part about digital drawing. You can erase things an infinite number of times. And Yeah, so anyway, give them a beard. The other beauty of digital drawing is the manipulation factor. Say you don't like this hat, maybe it's too wide. So you can change things around. You can manipulate stuff with the computer in a way that's just not possible when you're doing that on paper. To do that on paper, I would have to scan it into the computer. Then I could adjust it, manipulate it, and come back. So the one question I've had before many times, and something that's very important, is getting the different points of your carving aligned to make a good bandsaw cutout pattern. And it's not that hard. So I'm going to show you how to do that. In the carving, or in the drawing program, we have the luxury of being able to just drag this guide down. I don't know if y'all can really see that, so I will, let's see. There we go. I will, and I can't remember what anyway. So what we need guidelines going across here. And so what I'm drawing out here is, let's see, this one needs to move down. I'm putting this horizontal purple line right on the top of his hand. And you can see, well, the hand on the front view is in the wrong spot. So we need to move that image down so things line up. Okay, that works pretty good. But you also have to check other things like, what's that do with the chin and the bottom of the nose? So we might have to, manipulate things. And there's a little leeway that you normally have because of different viewing angles from front to side view kind of thing. But if you're going to saw out where his nose is, that needs to be in the same place, front and side view. Or, you saw out the ears, that needs to be in the same spot. So drawing some horizontal guidelines across here to kind of connect the dots, make sure everything's in the same spot, that's the key to drawing good pattern where everything lines up so that your bandsaw cutout, when you cut it out from the front and side profile, works out properly. You can see how, the top of the suitcase works out. That's at the same point. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for. And as we're drawing, this will give you a reference for where to draw things. So you can see on the side view, I drew my sleeve. It's hanging down to the bottom of this purple line here. So over here on this side, now I know how far to draw that down. And well, I guess that's about all I've got drawn on here. And I can do the same thing with like the boots. So like the boots, the boots are going to come, right. The top of that boot's going to be right there. And I wouldn't really know where that would be without drawing that guideline across there. So that is the basics of pattern making. I've kind of rushed through this a little bit just because of how much there is to talk about and how little time we actually have. So what do you say we open it up to some questions now, Dave? Because I'm not going to be able to draw a complete pattern for you as you watch, unfortunately.
Yeah, Dylan, let's ask one more time to go through those applications you were using on the phone and what you had for that. And I know you're using Photoshop. What was the other app you were using?
So what I'm in right now, this is Krita, Krita. And it's a free open source program. You can download it. It's I think the folks are actually based out of Denmark, I think. Very powerful painting and drawing program. Like you said, you mentioned Photoshop. If you try and get, like nowadays, like the latest version of Photoshop is cloud-based, and they charge a ridiculous monthly subscription for it. If you're not a professional image person, if you're not a professional photographer or somebody, I don't see how you afford that. So I'm using Photoshop CS2, which is a 20-year-old version. But if you Google it, you can find it on the internet where you can download it for free. If you're careful where you download it from, you won't get a virus or anything. I think I got my copy off of Tech Genius, but Google around. GIMP is an open source alternative to Photoshop, and it should do everything that Photoshop does. But my only problem with that is that it's not Photoshop. So the hotkeys are different. It's just a little different. It's kind of like, it's like Apple and PC, it's just slightly different. But it should do everything.
GIMP, GIMP.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And since it's open source, it's actually up to date, unlike the 20-year-old version of Photoshop that I'm using. Which I did have an issue with Photoshop that I like the cursor. There was like 3 cursors, and I actually finally resolved that issue last night, so that made me happy. Let's see. Do I know about Inkscape? I think I've heard about that, but okay. Well, I'm not familiar with Inkscape. I mean, there's I've got like Autodesk on my phone. I use that on my phone occasionally, but excuse me, not Autodesk, Sketchbook. Maybe it's made by Autodesk. I don't know. But for drawing on the computer, I do like Create. I'm going to type that in now. So so that's what I use on there. Now on the phone for the drawing reference app, and that app is basically, everybody's seen the little posable wooden mannequin, right? We all use it as decoration. None of us have actually posed it and actually drawn that pose, right? I mean, I did. I bought it. I used it as decoration. This is the digital version of that. And actually, excuse me, that's just pose tool. And I think it's like $8 now, which when you consider how much I've used it, it's basically free. There are other similar apps. One of them that I've used is Magic Poser. And again, it allows you to manipulate a figure in 3D that you can then take some screenshots of, trace over the top of that, and create your pattern that way. Because sure, you can just draw from scratch. I've done it. You can just get your anatomy book out, draw up a figure, draw up the front view, then draw up the side view. But we're talking about how we can take shortcuts with modern technology, and that's a great way to do it. If you're working on an iPad or tablet, you might not have to do this switching back and forth between phone to computer the way I do. You just run the reference app right on, right on whatever you're drawing with. No, my printer is an inkjet. And if you're in the market for a printer, get a printer that has separate ink cartridges from the print head. Will save you a lot of money in the long run. Yeah, so.
And Dylan, you've got a class coming up. Will you speak about your class for just a second?
I do. I've got several classes coming up. Next month, I'm doing the International Woodcarvers Congress in Iowa. That's a week-long class. At this point, that's probably the longest running carving event in the country still. It's great fun to go out there. I love teaching out there. I started going out there to take classes. I went out there in 2008, took a class, went back for several years, missed a year or two, went back to another class, then they started having me teach. Out there, I'm going to be teaching, and let's see. Oh, wait, let me do this. Let's see, I am going to be teaching. Let's see if I can find the photos of what I'm going to teach. Let's see. Let's dig into the photo archive here. I'm teaching a human figure project. I do this often. I teach a split class. I'll have some people doing human figure project. I'll have some people doing relief carvings. So out there, the figure carving project is this Santa Claus. He was featured in Woodcarving Illustrated a number of years ago. Fun Santa. This was one that I designed using the Pose Tool app, like I was showing y'all, where I posed the figure and then I sketched the clothing on top of that. But I did that old school. I printed out the screenshots because that was way before I had the digital drawing pad. So that's the figure carving project. And there's like 2 seats left if you want to sign up for that class. And
we're going to go to find and be able to sign up for any of your classes or see anything you're doing.
Yeah, so for that, you're going to need to go to woodcarverscongress.org, I believe. If you look on the classes page on my website, I should have it listed there. And the relief carving project we're doing out there is this one. Oh, there. Get that out of the way. So this is the mill house at the John C. Campbell Folk School. This is my depiction of that. So I'm going to be teaching the guys out there over the course of the 5-day class how to do this carving from a rough out. And let me stop the screen share there for a second, and I can pull up my calendar because that is June 13th through the 17th. And it's woodcarverscongress.org is the website. Where is
Dylan, you have social media, Facebook, correct?
I'm on Facebook. That's it. Yeah, I never got into Instagram or anything like that. I am on Facebook. I do occasionally send out an email newsletter through my website. Here's my website, oldoakenterprises.com. You go to the classes page. let's see, we got the information about the classes I got coming up here. The week, I'm doing a turn and burn. I'm going to get home Saturday afternoon from the Congress, and I'm leaving Sunday morning to go down state, go down to Everett, Michigan to teach for Floyd at his event, Floyd Fest. And again, I'm teaching that Santa Claus. And at that, I got a new project for that class. And it is a hobbit hole carving. I've done this carving as a online class, but this will be the first time we carve it in person. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So this is the relief project for the project there in Everett, Michigan. Later in the year, at the beginning of October, there's a 2-day, so 3-day class. I'm doing my Tudor style house is going to be the project for that class. So that's the design. This drawing here and the one I just showed you, this is what I'm able to do in that drawing program. And, you know, I wouldn't get near this fancy with the leaves and stuff in a drawing, except for that drawing program has those pre-made stencil brushes. Otherwise, it would just be a bunch of like squiggles up there in the tree, and I would call it a day.
Awesome, Dylan. We're approaching 15 minutes after. If anybody has any final questions for Dylan, then we might be wrapping up for the day, but let's see any more questions.
Well, yeah. As everybody thinks of their final question, I'll show off the cowboy design, which is also for the Gathering of Woodcarvers there at the September 30th through the October 2nd. It's that class. And then also I've got another online class coming up. And I want to tell you all about that, because what I'm doing with those, I'm doing open carvings. You know, you can work on whatever you want, whether it's your project, whether it's one of mine, you know, pay for the class, log in. It's done like this through Zoom. And what I'm doing is I'm doing like evening sessions, like 7 p.m. every Thursday night. The next class is going to start August 4th. It's going to run through September 22nd. And people log in. They email me photos of their carvings, and I draw on them. I take a look at the photograph. I say, okay, well, you know, this perspective line's not headed in the right direction. You need to adjust that. Or, you know, it looks like you need to carve deeper here, you know, and I talk them through their projects. And so that's what that's about. So you'll be able to sign up for that very soon on my website. I'll get that right away. For me, just deciding when the dates are, that's always the big thing. Get that planned out. So that's kind of my calendar for the rest of the year. And yeah, don't get around and travel as much as I used to.
All right. Do we have any more questions for Dylan? Just a couple more seconds here. All right. Well, since we don't have any more questions, we're going to wrap up our meeting for the day. I'm going to give you a quick reminder about our next meeting is June 18th. Chris Wilson with Wilson Wildlife Sculpture is going to be presenting for us. So make sure that you're there for that. And we're also going to do that Helvie knife auction at that time. Guys, we thank you so much for joining us for the International Association of Woodcarvers. And I pray you guys have a great day. See y'all next time.